again, I welcome everyone. And just so that you know, for those of you joining us for the first time, we have 3 segments. The first segment, we're going to pose some questions. I will pose some questions to the panel. In the second segment, you will get to answer questions through a poll that we will offer you. So you will have a chance to have your say in that second segment when we give the poll. So that's always a very exciting feature. And in the third segment, which is our largest segment, is where you get to ask your questions. You get to pose your questions. And via Zoom and Facebook, we expect and hope to take as many questions as we can. And again, the object of this is really to engage you, to help us all navigate this pandemic together, and to ensure that as a region, we come out stronger at the end of it all. And so let's turn to our subject today. In the first 2 parts of this mini-series on pandemic and digital currency, we covered the motivation behind the Digital EC pilot project. And if I could put it in a word or in a sentence, it would be the fastest, cheapest, safest way to move money in our region. That's our basic value proposition. Now, it is true that the ECCB has done a lot of the heavy lifting on this project. The conceptualization, the investment of time and money and engagement. We've done a lot of that over the last 2 years. But we cannot succeed, and this project will not succeed without partners. And therefore, we want to talk today about some of the partners that are critical to the ultimate success of this project. And so we like to talk about this term called ecosystem, which is a network where we bring partners together. And I want to start with that. So Sybil, could I ask you simply to explain to us, in the context of our Digital EC pilot project, what is an ecosystem?
Thanks, Governor. Well, an ecosystem is really that environment that allows for the exchange and activities among all of the elements and actors. And so when you talk about the ecosystem for the EC Digital Cash, you're looking at first the enabling an environment. And part of that enabling environment is ECCB's remit to issue EC Digital Cash. And so we have that remit already. We have made all of the necessary changes for the ECCB agreement to explicitly identify EC Digital Cash within the issuance of our sovereign currency. And of course, I think in this element of COVID-19, where persons are looking more for cashless, that is also a significant contributor to the ecosystem enabling environment. And then we get to the platform ecosystem. We're talking about the technology. We're talking about on the demand side, the users, on the supply side, those who are providing access to the digital currency and providing a platform in which, or an ecosystem enabling environment in which you can use the EC Digital Cash. And we like to coin it and say Dcash. We know we were saying DXCD, but that's more of an industry type name, as we would say XCD for the physical. So we now say Dcash for digital, for DXCD. You have now your suppliers. Those will be your financial institutions and also your merchants that allow for cash in, cash out. And on the demand side, you have the retail users, you and I, who want to be able to transact without having to use cash, but also having a safer, cheaper, faster way. So we know there are other electronic means out there, but this value proposition, which is part of the platform ecosystem, speaks to what are we offering when we talk about Dcash, EC Digital Cash. We're talking about a safer, faster, cheaper way to transact that really trumps your use of other alternatives, be it physical cash, which we know has several drawbacks. While we don't want to eliminate total cash, we know the drawbacks of having to transport, secure, and all of the other elements. And when we talk about card payments, we know that there is a cost that is significantly hitting on the bottom line of merchants and institutions to enable that platform. So we're providing a more accessible platform. Protection is key. And that's part of the ecosystem. When we talk about one's money, the first thing one wants to know is how secure. And that's why we have enabled the technology infrastructure of using blockchain and using that technology that allows for us to customize a platform that gives us maximum security and maximum efficiency while protecting the individual, the user rights to be able to have their own information secure and private. And so it's all of these issues, the partners, we spoke about partnership. And on the broader scale, the partners would entail our governments, who are our at the apex of the institution, the Monetary Council, for our government, member governments. And we also look at the private sector and the wider public sector for partners, because we need to be able to have maximum usage of this. So we need partners, even in accounting, even in legal, to be able to embrace this technology, understanding that the world is moving. And when it moves, technology is the great equalizer. While we're talking about we have small size and we need economies of scale and size, this gives us the economies of organization and allows us to leapfrog into this new century in moving us forward. So that's really what we're talking about when we talk about the ecosystem. How do we bring all of the various elements and actors together to create a dynamic environment that supports this digital transformation, starting off with our EC Digital Cash Pilot project?
Right. Thank you, Sybil. So if you hear Dcash, this is what we're talking about, digital EC dollars. Dcash, okay? Keep that in mind. Before we continue, though, I just want to acknowledge the fact that we have several of our citizens and residents joining us across the currency union via radio today. In Anguilla, Radio Anguilla. In Antigua and Barbuda, ABS Radio. In the Commonwealth of Dominica, we have Q95 FM. In Grenada, GBN Classic Radio. Montserrat, ZJB Radio. In St. Kitts and Nevis, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. In St. Lucia, WVent 93.5 and 94.7 FM. And in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, NBC Radio. I want to say special good morning to all of our listeners join us via the radio stations that I've just mentioned. It's great to have you on board. And if you just joined us, we're talking about pandemic and digital currency and how you can become involved in this innovative project, which is intended to be the fastest, cheapest, and safest way for you to move money around our region. And Sybil just spoke to the idea of an ecosystem, who is involved. And ultimately, the most important player in that ecosystem is you, because you are the ones, the retail users, for whom this product has been designed. So we'll continue now with a panel, and I'm going to ask Sybil to just speak a little bit about some of the partners and what have been formed our choice of partners for this project.
Yes, in terms of partners, there are many, and you spoke about the issue of collaboration, because the only way that we can get to the point where we need to go is to go together. So among our partners, we start off with the financial institutions. This is a multi-tier central bank digital currency. It's not eliminating the financial institutions, but it is not dependent on the financial institutions alone. And so when we speak about the commercial banks and the credit unions, they are part of the distribution as they are for our EC physical cash. So we issue the currency and we issue the digital cash via financial institutions, be they commercial banks or credit unions. We also have non-bank financial institutions involved in this. This is a partnership, and part of what we want to address is financial inclusion. And part of that financial inclusion is to make sure not only are we targeting the underbanked through addressing the cost friction, to reduce the cost of the payment system transactions platform, to allow persons to have one that is very affordable, accessible. As you said, Governor, it's cheaper, faster, safer. And that is what we want. But we also recognize there are persons who do not have a bank account with a commercial bank or credit union, or they would choose not to have one by choice. And this is where we are allowing that choice, because the more choices we have in the payment system, the more robust. And the more robust the payment system, the more that we're building a strong foundation for economic growth and development and competitiveness. And so we have the financial institutions, the commercial banks, the credit unions. We also have the non-bank financial institutions who will provide an avenue for those persons to be able to go to them, to onboard, whether remotely or physically, and be able to then get access to our Dcash, to their Dcash. When I say oh, I mean it's theirs. And they can then transact in this very technology forward environment and make it accessible and affordable. So the financial institutions are a critical component, so are the non-bank financial institutions. And this allows for fintech companies also to be part of that. In fact, we have one fintech company that is part of our agency providing access to those persons who don't have an account with either commercial bank or credit union. And as we move forward in the project and we move beyond the pilot, we then embrace a wider set of developers, a wider set of those who are involved in financial technology industry. And so it's quite embracing. And then we have our merchants. And our merchants are critical because when you talk about a market, you're talking about where can I spend? You have buyers, you have sellers. I need to be able to spend my Dcash. And so we have merchants, and merchants go from large to small. And that gives us a good, nice mix of the diversity of the pilot. It's not everyone, because it's a pilot, but you're talking about utility companies. You're talking about persons who are selling household items. You're talking about gas stations. You're talking about supermarkets and pharmacies and bakeries. And you're talking about persons who do shipping. You're talking about persons who do beauty care. You go to your barber and your hairdresser every week. And so those are a critical mix of this as well. And then we have those who are technology savvy, who are also looking forward to when we then make the APIs available to them.
Right. So Sybil, we'll come to the APIs and the third providers a little later. That's an important forward-looking part of the project. But you covered so far the fact that there'll be banks, there'll be credit unions, there'll be utility companies, pharmacies, bakeries, supermarkets, other providers, barber shops, hair salons potentially involved. But of course, us, the users, we the people, as we would say, who have a smartphone. And so that's the core of the ecosystem for the Digital Cash Project. You also made the point, and we want to repeat, this idea is to make it easier to do business in our region. We are not intending to eliminate physical cash. So we always expect for the foreseeable future to have physical cash and digital cash. But as we found in this pandemic, you do need to have digital tools. We would not be speaking to each other this morning and hearing each other and seeing each other without digital tools. We would not be worshiping, as many of us have had to do for many months, without digital tools. Working, going to school with our children. So the whole idea of the use of digital tools is very, very powerful in this pandemic. In fact, digital tools and connectivity have been a lifeline in this pandemic. And I say this all the time because it's a key lesson coming out of the pandemic. And I want to situate the discussion we're having today in the context of this pandemic and the way forward for our region. If we're going to digitize this region, one of the key steps is the digitization of our dollar, our EC dollar. And that is what this project is about. So stay tuned. We have a lot more to talk about this morning. Welcome to all those who have joined. Kieran, let me turn to you now. Tell us a little bit about the campaign to engage some of these partners, which we're talking about.
Thank you for that question, Governor. It has been quite an unprecedented approach that the ECCB has taken throughout from the launch of the digital currency pilot. That's as far back as 2019, March, the official launch. But we go even further in terms of 2018, when we did so much, lots of consultative conferences as well, bilateral and group discussions with various partners. And Sybil has outlined and listed quite a few of those partners that are part of our ecosystem today. Now, first off, the ECCB continually prides itself on remaining strategically committed to adopting a consultative approach and that of building partnerships. And we took that very same approach in developing this pilot. Right now, we're nearing the finalization of the phase 1 of development, and the campaign so far has been with the financial institutions mostly, where we've had several stakeholder consultations, working sessions, and bilateral discussions. Right now, the financial institutions have received training as well, and we've been dealing intimately with the various business units in each of those institutions to ensure that they're operationally ready to house eCash operations come launch. Also, we've had so many invitations and different conferences throughout the region, be it regulatory agencies, namely telecoms operators. We have various parts of different sectors in the economy who have invited us to speak to how the digital currency can help transform businesses, primarily the tourism associations. We've had other invitations from fellow central banks in European Union, Canada, UK. And what I'd like to concentrate on today is what pushed us in terms of going about it that way. As you said earlier on, the central bank alone cannot deliver on this. A consultative and collaborative approach is best. And what we've learned so far is that the banks see the net positive advantage in deploying such a technology. And when we speak to that, in those consultations, we had to show proof of value of embarking on such a product. And for one, who is best poised to do so? So throughout the campaign, we note who would be able to deliver value at scale in retail banking, who would be able to at least adopt a proactive approach to minimize transaction costs and fees, who would be able to digitize processes for convenient compliance. All of these add towards reducing the costs, operational costs for operators within the financial system. And through that, the campaign so far has been a very brilliant one. ECCB chose to embark upon that digital currency project, one where we have the potential to be the very first central bank to issue a blockchain-based digital currency. And the magnitude of that project is, it is huge, and I am certainly excited to be here. So we are continuing on that thrust, and so far it's been a great experience for all partners. Thank you, Governor.
Right. Thank you, Kieran. Thanks for that. Sybil, let me ask you, what are the costs of financial implications for financial institutions and others who want to get involved in this project?
The cost for the pilot, ECCB is, of course, absorbing all of the developmental costs for the pilot. I think when we talk about costs, you also talk about benefits. Of course, for all institutions who are involved with this, there is a cost of resources because they have to assign their human resources to be able to be part of the training, the learning. And so there is a cost of resources, and time is money. But one looks at the two-sided equation of cost and benefits. And Kieran alluded to those benefits. When you're talking about transformation, you're talking about efficiency, operational efficiency. And that hits on the bottom line. Consider a financial institution or even a merchant, and you think that instead of having to physically tally up cash or physically reconcile checks, you now have an accessible, affordable means of really, it's digital. So the digital generated transaction report, you pull that into your spreadsheet, and you can then see real time what is going on financially and make those decisions right on the spot. So the more information you have, the more informed you are, and then the more agile you are in your decision making. And we know with COVID, agility is really key for us, for our resilience and survival. So at the level of the financial institutions, outside of the human resources, of course, that operational issues they have to address, at the moment, ECCB is funding the platform. For the merchants, for the pilot, there is no cost to use the technology. There's no cost to accept payments of Bcash, unlike your merchant discount rate and the leasing of the equipment that would obtain with a card infrastructure. However, beyond the pilot, one has to think about a business model where it's a win-win for all. And so as we think about what sort of cost infrastructure can we make this a win-win for all, we know that any costs that are assigned will be far less than what we are having now. So now we have around between 3.8 to about 4%, somewhere around that. For the merchant discount rate, it might vary depending on who is the provider. We know that we can reduce that cost significantly, and that cost will allow for a more efficient and a more profitable and a more resilient businesses. And so they can then use that time and the additional cost savings to really upscale and to make their businesses even more competitive in advancing to a more resilient business and a business that serves their customers, be it a financial institution or a merchant, better. And better service means better returns.
Right. Thank you, Sybil. So for the customer, you and I who will be using digital cash, there is no upfront cost because we already have a smartphone, a smart device, a tablet or phone, which we will use to move our money or digital cash. There are no charges on data during this phase of the pilot, thankfully, and we again want to commend the telecommunications companies. They have agreed to zero rate the app, which we will use to transfer money. So it will not cost you when you have to use that app. And for the merchants, as you just said, there's very little cost because we are, ECCB, taking all of the upfront costs. We've made that investment for you. And you made a point about the fact that a lot of these businesses, perhaps especially our small businesses, which rely on electronic payments, have to pay 4, sometimes even 5% per transaction. And that makes it very expensive to use those electronic payments. And so it is not unusual in the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean, to go to a store, you see a machine, and when you ask them, they tell you it's not working. And the truth is that sometimes it is working, but because the transaction size is relatively small, they do not want to use it because of what they have to pay to use the machine. And of course, these small businesses then pass these costs on to you and me, you and I, the customers, because they have to pay them. In this digital project, we have no costs, no such cost involved. So from the customer perspective, but also from the small business perspective, it is far cheaper. And that is the reason why, as a basic value proposition, we continue to make the point that the digital cash allows us to have the fastest, cheapest, safest payment instrument in our region. And as we all know, payments are the lifeblood of any economy.
And Governor, if we could also add that it's not just about the cost, but the opportunity lost. There's so many young persons who are innovators and so many businesses who want to get in business, but because they can't afford the current payment platforms, they know they do not pursue their ideals, their dreams. And then what happens is now they then go out to the market and they may then have to be subsumed on the government payroll, and government is already maybe already have a insufficient capacity to absorb and put a strain on that. So this platform will allow not just for reducing costs, but it will expand opportunities for persons now to come into the mix of providers of services.
Absolutely. And this is a period when we want to be exploring opportunities. And remember, one of the objectives of this project is financial inclusion. You spoke about people who do not have bank accounts for whatever reasons. And let's face it, it is not easy to open a bank account these days because of the whole issue of correspondent banking relations. But there's also the other side of inclusion of entrepreneurs, small businesses, small business people, which is what you just spoke to. But you also mentioned governments, which is a nice segue to invite Kay to get in on the panel. And Kay, you, in your prior role, you worked in our banking division. In fact, you headed that unit there. You worked directly with government on banking services and did a great job. So I want to ask you, Kay, how can the digital EC cash be used to enhance the operations of governments? And how can member governments get on board with this particular project?
All right, thank you, Governor. This is a very important question because, as you will note, I will highlight the benefits from this project to the government is not only for the governments, but also for the regular citizens. So it's important that the government partner with us in this project. We have been working with several of the governments in the pilot countries to get them ready and onboarded to use the digital cash platform. The DigCash is very poised to support the improvement of the payment services by the government revenue collecting agencies. And when we speak of revenue collecting agencies, we can identify port authorities, treasuries, customs, inland revenues, departments, etc. Now, the governments can gain much efficiencies in its payroll and pension payments and receipts to and from small vendors and partners, and just general payments on a whole. Currently, if I am to highlight one of these benefits in more detail, we have governments using a system where pension payments being made to persons now residing in different countries after retirement are made through bilateral arrangements with governments in the countries where the pensioners reside. This therefore means that these governments on a monthly basis, they would come to the central bank to make wire transfers to settle these net differences for these payments. With the DCash transfer option, the governments can utilize the platform to make the payments directly to the pensioners each month and get these entries real time immediately passed through their balance sheet. Another much welcome benefit of the digital ECCash is that governments can reduce the amount of checks it issues for payments, which also means that persons will no longer have to stand in long treasury lines to receive credit for goods, services, and benefits from the government, but can rather receive instantaneous payments directly to their digital ECCash accounts. So this means more persons out there, more citizens will have to sign up to this project because you will need an account, a digital ECCash account, in order to access these from the government. Once you receive the money in your DCash wallets, you can either choose to use regular spending using your digital ECCash where available, or you can cash out that digital ECCash for physical cash in order to make other your daily transactions. And I'm sure these benefits, I'm sure, will be much welcomed by the general public when dealing with the government. Thank you, Dr.
Yes, Kay, thank you so much for sharing that. And this one is personal to me in some ways because having worked in government for a long time in the Ministry of Finance, I do not like to see people having to line up to collect payments from government. I do not find it the most dignified way of going about distributing benefits, much needed benefits. And in this period of the pandemic, where physical distancing is important, we have to have less lining up, less queuing up to get goods and services, whether it's from the governments, whether it's in the banks, whether it's in the credit unions. So the idea of being able to have digital cash via a smartphone that allows you to receive your benefits without having to queue up, to me, is something that we need to pursue. I also want to give a personal experience. I was paying my property tax in Grenada recently, and unfortunately, I had to pay via check. No, it's not good for the environment when we have to write all of these checks. With this digital cash, I ought to be in a position to be able to pay my taxes in Grenada or anywhere else for that matter in the ECCU via my smartphone. That's another simple example, a personal example, if you will, of how we can do it faster and cheaper, and of course, do it safer. So I thank you for that, Kay, because I think that's a very important part of the value proposition for our region. Let me turn to Kieran. Kieran, can you talk to us about the application process for getting our partners on board?
In terms of the application process, it has been one where we've mostly sought or solicited interest from various stakeholders and partners. For one, the financial institutions were engaged from the onset upon launch, even before March 2019, where they were basically asked to indicate an interest to participate in the pilot and saw the net advantage of doing so. Based on their interest, indications of interest, we engaged those financial institutions and have been engaging them throughout the development phase of the pilot. Once the financial institutions have assessed their ability and capableness of housing DXCD operations, we have developed guidance notes to help them along, as well build capacity within those institutions in terms of the underlying technology that we're using to offer the Dcash, that is blockchain, a private permission-based one. On that basis, financial institutions would have as well to sign a terms and condition document for operating throughout the phase of the pilot, which will be 6 months once we've launched. And this basically would be the process that they would have to go through with the ECCB to participate in the pilot. Other stakeholders like retail end users, merchants, and individuals like you and myself would basically need to apply through their financial institutions by downloading the app. And once that has been downloaded, you get the option to choose your financial institution. And the app is available in the Google Store. Upon choosing that financial institution, you will receive a terms and conditions, as you do receive with any app that you download from the Google Store at this moment. Most of us simply tick and move along because we're so eager to download that app to get to use the capabilities of that form of digitization. So for Dcash, we've made it very simple. And once you've accepted your terms and conditions, you get to experience what the DXCD platform is like. Financial institutions will be operating a financial institutions app, merchants will receive a merchants app, and end users like me will have a retail app to transact and operate within the pilot throughout the 6 months. The application process is very simple, it's very easy, and financial institutions, agencies, we also have credit unions involved who are so very eager to offer their clients, the credit unions especially, such a very innovative product, which will help make the transaction a lot seamless, where persons can submit remote requests to get transactions executed with their credit unions. Thank you, Governor.
Right, thank you, Kieran, and it's great to have you back, and we're hearing you very clearly now. So thank you for that technological upgrade, which now allows us to hear you quite clearly. Thank you. So Kieran, let me stay with you for a little longer. There are 4 pilot countries, namely Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia. Does the implementation schedule include a timeline for rollout to non-pilot countries to further build out the ecosystem?
Thanks for that question, Governor, because it has been one we have had to confront, and it has been posed to us from inception when you first gave your press release in March 2019 and March 2018. Residents across the ECCU were very eager to participate. We have 8 islands, and as you would imagine, everyone wants to be a part of it, as always, because we adopt a very consultative approach, partnership. That's what we remain strategically committed to. And we had to make some hard decisions. For one, this is just a pilot. that we're rolling out. And of course, when you think of, like you've mentioned before, the cost, infrastructure development, and what the purpose and overall objective is at this time, we have an overarching objective for this initiative, of course, where we've mentioned financial inclusion and competitiveness, resilience in our financial system, helping to innovate it. And the ECCB is best poised to deliver on those because it's almost like a public good. Which one bank would actually go out and build such an infrastructure, which would benefit every bank and every sector in our economy. So in doing so, ECCB had to be quite prudent in terms of our approach. How do we roll out? It had to be a phased strategy. And we've started off with 4 pilot countries. And as Sybil would have mentioned earlier, that was determined based on the indicative interests of financial institutions who have to be part of that pilot. The agencies, so based on the polls we got and the acceptance from those institutions, we determined, okay, we have enough who are ready and who are eager to adopt that technology. And of course, they had to do so bearing in mind their resources and capability to participate. ECCB, from the onset, absorbed all the costs, the infrastructure costs, to ensure that we get as much participants as possible. But it can only go in so far, and we have to weigh the cost and the benefit. Right now, it's a 6-month pilot. And for now, we have 4 countries, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Grenada. And once this first phase of the pilot has been completed, post-pilot, the intention, as you've said in many of your speeches, this is not an academic exercise. We intend, of course, and we hope that we could roll it out, commercialize the product, because the overarching objective is to help reduce the pain points in terms of transactions and to help reduce financial exclusion in the region. So once that is done, the other pilot countries, the other ECCU countries, I'm already calling them pilot countries, the other ECCU countries will definitely have an opportunity to participate, and we look forward to that. For one, we've made sure that all our information is available to all 8, despite us starting off with the first 4 with member countries in the currency union. Thanks, Governor.
Right. Thank you, Kieran. And let me just add that all 8 of our member countries are very interested and supportive of this project. We ultimately selected 2 in the leewards and 2 in the windwards. And we did so by inviting financial institutions to express interest. That's how we got to the 4, okay? But all 8 are interested. What we also know with innovation is that you have to test and learn. You have to do pilots. And so that is why, as you said, Kieran just said, we're taking this measured, phased approach. But ultimately, we want to have digital cash in all 8 of our member countries. And we want them to be very much involved in the process. So let me just ask though, if a financial institution in one of the pilot, if in one of the pilot countries, a citizen or resident is not able, their bank is not a pilot partner, can that person still benefit from this project? Can they still be involved in this pilot? So let's say I'm in a pilot country, but my bank or credit union is not a pilot partner. They have not signed up. Is there any way else for me to be part of this project?
Yes, certainly. And Keturah, Kay can certainly add to that. That's why we've thought of building out the ecosystem with agencies, and that would be money services institutions. And they are there to help with the retail onboarding, where you could qualify for at least one of our Dcash wallets. You do not need to have a bank account or a credit union account. You can access and be a part of this groundbreaking experience by going through our agencies. So we thought of everyone to ensure that no one is excluded in this innovative initiative that we've embarked upon.
Right. Thank you, Kieran. So perhaps that leads me to ask Keturah, what are the role of agents in this process? Okay.
Right, Governor. So Agents are one of our major stakeholders in this project because one of the main objectives, as Sybil would have highlighted earlier, of this project is financial inclusion. And we do know that for a number of reasons, citizens in the ECCU, either they cannot or they do not access basic financial services within the ECCU financial system. And this could be attributable to a number of reasons. And two of the main reasons that come to my mind right now are the requirements by the financial institutions to fulfill their AML, CFT, and KYC regulations, and also the cost of financial services on a whole. What the ECCB seeks to use this project to do is to bridge that gap. So hence, we are offering two types of digital wallets. When the project is launched, we will offer the registered-based wallet, which will be offered by the financial institutions who are pilot participating banks and credit unions, and the value-based wallet. The value-based wallet offers users who do not currently have a relationship with any of the participating financial institutions, banks or credit unions. It offers them an easier method to gain access to and participate in the pilot. Now, it allows users the opportunity to conduct low-value transactions based on preset limits. So these limits will be set as opposed to a commercial bank. When you sign up for a wallet with a commercial bank, you have the liberty of getting different levels of limits based on your current relationship with them. For the value-based wallets, you would see that we do apply some KYC into those wallets, but they're not subject to any ongoing AML and CFT monitoring as would happen with the commercial bank who have a larger value limits. These are very low-based retail transactions that you will be able to conduct. Just to say that the value-based wallets are going to have two limits. It will be a tier 0 limit, 1,000. So that's once you sign up, you will get 1,000. And I will explain how that will happen, 1,000 EC dollars. And then you can move now with more KYC information to the maximum limit of 2,700 EC. Now the agency has two roles. One, it will act as an intermediary agent. And what does that mean? Well, just like you have a financial institution acting as an agency between the customers and other financial services, the agency is going to act as the agent between the value-based wallet users and access to the DXCD or the Dcash. It mainly acts on behalf of users, as I said, with no existing relationship with pilot participating FI, or individuals who do have relationship with a financial institution, but who choose to use a value-based wallet instead of the registered-based wallet. And the agent also will act as our onboarding agent. So when we speak of onboarding, we mean they are the ones who are going to be responsible for approving persons to gain access to the DXCD. So you will go on the App Store and you will download the wallet from the App Store, but that doesn't give you access to the DXCD. You now will have to go through, based on the app, it will ask you to do an application, a remote application via the app. Those will be submitted to the agencies, and we will have specified agencies assigned to do these tasks. So it's not just anybody can become an agent. They have to be in a compliant role, and we choose our non-bank financial institution who are licensed by the ECCB. And we also have one fintech service provider who we have the faith in and who we have assessed their business model and their operations, and we think that they are fit to become an agent because they have a full compliance role. And that is important because we do not want to have anybody just doing this service. We want to ensure that KYC and some basic AML, CFT regulations and checks are in place, and to assure the safety of transactions within our system. So the agencies will onboard remotely. Once you do your application and submit it, our system will send it to an agent. We have one agent in each participating country, with the exception of St. Kitts, we have two, because we have that fintech company, which we want to give the opportunity to help them also to build in the fintech ecospace. So the application will go to the agents will perform. Our system will do the checks, the KYC checks and all the system checks. But we have in the interest of security and soundness and reliability of our system, we have agreed that there should be some physical eyeballing of these applications, because we could have chosen to have those applications approved via the system. But we said, you know what, somebody should own this. Somebody should own this customer. Somebody should own the information of this customer for safety. And so we have assigned these agencies, and that's where the agencies come. So they're going to be the person who will approve your application. They will do their checks. There will be security checks. You will have to upload a selfie and the information. And so they will do all of those checks manually again, although the system would have done some checks, and you would be approved or denied. If further information is required, they would also let you know, and then you will be approved. Now, they are also responsible for approving the different tiers. So earlier I spoke of 2 tiers. So when you approve initially, you get an instant transaction limit of 1,000 EC. So if you require to go up to that 2,700 EC, and that first tier requires only one piece of ID. So it will be a government issued ID in the first instance that you will have to upload along with your selfie. Now, if you want to get that higher limit of $2,700, you will have to now go into the agent's office. So you're not going to be able to do that remotely. And for many reasons, we have chosen that method. So you're going to have to go into the agent's office and make that application via the agent, and they would require an additional piece of ID from you based on their internal. They would decide what they accept. Of course, I think it might be another government ID or some secure method of identification, whether it could be a bill, it could be a passport, it could be any other ID that is acceptable to them based on their compliance function that they operate. So there are 2 roles, as I highlighted. They will act as an agent between the DXCD customers and the DXCD service, and they will also be responsible for onboarding all DXCD users onto the system. Thank you, Governor.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Kay. So there you have it in terms of the role of agents, very important part of that ecosystem. I'm sure all of us would appreciate that while this will be a lot faster and safer, we do still have to look after our basic obligations when it comes to fighting money laundering and terrorist financing. And so what Kay mentioned in terms of 1 government issued ID for the $1,000 limit, 2 government issued ID or bill for the 2,700 limit, of course, those are the safeguards to ensure that the integrity of the system, and I'm speaking of financial integrity. Now, if you are registering with a bank or credit union, you have much higher limits because, of course, they have a profile of you. They have their own AML CFT system, which is approved in the case of the banks by us, in the case of the credit unions by the regulators in the various countries. And therefore, your limit could be much higher depending on what resources you have, because they already know you and they have a profile for you. So we give you the options, as Kay said, value-based for those who do not have accounts, or registered-based for those who have accounts with banks or credit unions. Right, so I want to stop here. Panel, thanks very much for your great answers. We want to go to the second segment now to hear from our listeners and viewers, our participants. And so I'd now like us to have the poll at this time. I'd like us to have the poll. So could we now have we have 3 questions lined up for you. So this is the poll segment where you get to answer 3 questions. And after that, we're going to take your questions. That's the third and final segment of our dialogue. So welcome again this morning. This is ECCB Digital Dialogues, Pandemic and Digital Currency, Part 3. We're looking at partners, the ecosystem for this very innovative project. And now we go to our poll. We go to our poll. And of course, those of you who've done this before, you know how it works. You put in www.menti.com. You put that into your homepage, www.menti.com. And thereafter, you have to put in a code. And the code is what's the code? $551861. All right, so the code is 551861. So you got to go to, thank you, you got to mentimedia.com. Once you get in there, you're going to be asked for a code. The code is 551861. Once you put in that code, the questions will begin to appear. We have 3 questions lined up for you this morning. This is always a very exciting part of our dialogue because this is your feedback. And this is also very helpful for us as we design or we finalize the design of the project. So here we have our first question, and I'm going to read it again for those who are listening and not viewing. If your financial institution is not participating in the pilot, would you be willing to sign up for a value-based wallet? If your financial institution is not participating in the pilot, would you be willing to sign up for a value-based wallet? That's the first question. And for those who are listening, I'm going to tell you what the feedback is shortly. So we give a couple moments now for our participants to actually weigh in with their responses, and then I'll tell you what the result was. This is voting in real time. You don't have to wait for the results. The results are seen, full transparency. As you put in your vote, you see the results on the screen. You can't get it faster and better than that. Remember I told you this digital cash project is going to be faster, cheaper, and safer. In fact, the fastest, cheapest, and safest. And our poll is certainly, I suspect, the fastest poll around at the moment. So 1 minute left on this one because we want to get through the questions, the poll, and get to your questions. If your financial institution is not participating in the pilot, would you be willing to sign up for a value-based wallet? And so far, we have 59 persons have put in their answers, and of that number, 51 people said yes. 60 people have now voted. Okay, there are more people involved online, but so far 60 people have voted. And again, if you're doing this for the first time, you don't know how it works, let me tell you very quickly. You put it in on your homepage, www.menti.com. Once you put that in, it's going to ask you for a code. The code is 551861. And after that, the questions will appear. So the first question you saw, it's there. So I'm going to thank you very much. I think the overwhelming majority of persons said, I am willing to use a value-based wallet if my partner, my bank or credit union is not a partner. That makes great sense. And frankly, if I were you, I would do exactly the same. I cannot be left out of this, whether my bank or financial institution is involved or not. So that's why the option is there. So you can do it even if they're not a pilot partner in this early phase. Right, thank you very much. Ayo, I think, is on the controls today. Ayo, so Ayo Dele, thank you very much. That's one of our colleagues in our IT department. She's helping us with the poll today. The second question then, we're moving it up, we're speeding things up. The pilot countries are Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay? And the question is, should there be a rollout in the remaining countries, or other 4 member countries? Anguilla, Montserrat, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Would you be willing to participate? Okay, so there are 4 countries in the pilot, but assuming that we do it for other countries, which is what we would want to do and plan to do, and certainly expect to do, the question is, would you be willing to be part of this experience? Okay, so so far, we just looking at the screen, 51 persons have already voted, 46 persons said yes, 4 said not sure, and 2 said no. So the overwhelming majority of persons, 52 out of 58 now, are saying that they will be willing to participate. One of the things I've stressed from the outset of this pandemic is that we have to have, as a region, a growth mindset. We have to reframe our problems as opportunities. And this project does present an opportunity for our region. I say it all the time, and I say it again. We cannot change our history. We cannot change our geography, but we can certainly change our trajectory. But we have to take the collective action to do that. And this is an example of how we could act collectively to help, in fact, transform our region as we look at how we survive this pandemic and we emerge stronger as a region. So that's the second question. 62 out of 69 persons said yes, an emphatic yes. Thank you for those responses. Let's go to our third question. Third question in the poll. Third question in the poll. Which of the following concerns would prevent you from participating in this pilot? Which of the following concerns would prevent you from participating in this pilot? And we have 5 options for you. Security, privacy, your financial institution is not a participant, not enough information, not interested. So those are the 5 options available. Which, I repeat the question, which of the following concerns would prevent you from participating in the pilot? 1, security. 2, privacy. 3, your financial institution is not participating. 4, not enough information. 5, not interested. So, at this moment, 47 persons have already voted. 33 of them, it's now actually 53 persons who voted. 38 of them have said security would be their main concern. 6 have said privacy. 9 have said my financial institution is not a participant. 4 have said not enough. And 1 has said not interested. Okay, we give you a couple more seconds before we close this poll. I see you getting the hang of it. Now 70 persons have now cast their vote. So you're getting into the thick of things. 72 persons have now done that. Let's see if we can run up the score a little bit. And while we're doing that, let me just again recognize the radio stations who are with us for this special edition of ECCB Digital Dialogues, Pandemic and Digital Currency Part 3. Today we have with us in Anguilla, Radio Anguilla, in Antigua and Barbuda, ABS Radio, in the Commonwealth of Dominica, Q95 FM, in Grenada, GBN Classic Radio, in Montserrat, ZJB Radio, in St. Kitts and Nevis, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, in St. Lucia, WVent, or WeVent, I suspect, 93.5 and 94.7 FM, and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, NBC Radio. And I want to thank our partners in these radio stations for joining us today and for all our listeners who are in this dialogue via these radio stations. Thank you for joining us. And so we'll conclude the poll. 75 persons have voted. 52 now, 76, 52 persons have said security. 8 people have said privacy. 10 have said my financial institution is not a participant. 5 have said not enough information. 1 has said not interested. So there we have it. The overwhelming majority of persons said the main concern that would prevent me from this pilot is security. That response is very consistent with what we've heard. And that is why we've gone to great length to actually develop the safety protocols around this pilot. And that is why we're able to say it will be not only the fastest and cheapest, but also the safest payment instrument in our region. Safety is paramount, and we absolutely get that. In the previous dialogue, we spoke quite a lot about the security arrangements, and of course, if time permits, we can go into that again today. But thank you for the poll. Thank you for your response to the poll, and now I'd like to go straight to our questions. So we move to the third segment, which is our final segment of this dialogue. And right, and so we want to talk about, and the last time we spoke about dispute resolution, how the wallet works, and the process for participation. And again, this morning, we're going to go back on that. So the questions are going to be in these three buckets, three themes, if you will, over the next 30 minutes or so, whatever time we have left. So let's take the first question, right along. How do you correct a transfer if digital money is sent to an unintended participant? I think that question came up before. Sybil, we confirm, right? Let's go. What's the answer to that question?
Well, there are several stages for recourse to any problems that one encounters. There's first the ability to do it oneself. If I am transacting with you, Governor, or any of my peers or colleagues, and let me just point out first, the technology platform asks each of us to confirm that the transaction we're about to send is one that we have agreed to. So, but let us say for whatever reason, I confirmed a wrong transaction. If it is someone I know, and then I can just ask for the reverse. So that is the easy one to settle. It's almost as if I go to the supermarket and I give too much cash, and the person says, wait, you gave me too much cash, and they gave me back. And that happens sometimes. You may have notes stuck to each other. The other issue now, you can then have recourse. And in the issue of addressing customer service, you go to your financial service provider. That will be your commercial bank, your credit union, or your agency. If that does not pan out, then you move that, you ratchet that up to the ECCB. And there's always the legal aspect of that. The good thing about this platform is that everyone is known, and every transaction, while no one is looking at everybody's transaction, if there's a complaint, every transaction can be traced. And so that allows for multiple ways to address a problem. You either address it bilaterally with the person, and they will then, in good faith, do the reverse of that transaction. Now remember, you can't eliminate a transaction, because the idea of using the blockchain, the DLT, the distributed ledger technology, is so that you can have confidence in the data, that you can't just easily go and take things out. So the whole idea of it being sound, a record is final, allows for that.
Right. Sybil, thanks for that. So you basically have said you will be asked the question, and you will be asked to confirm the transaction before you press send. So you get a chance to make sure that is what you want to do. If that fails, as you said, there's a bilateral where if you know the person, you ask them to resend. If that fails, then you go up to the bank, is what I heard. All right, so that's
I think it's important to say that the system cannot reverse the trend. There's no reversal. So ECCB will not be able to reverse. We will only be able to identify in the final stage, if it gets to us, who it was made to, and contact that person to do a reversal from their end.
Right. Thanks for that, Kay. And that's important to be very clear on. So nobody's hidden. Nobody's looking at your specific transactions. We have a protocol around managing AML CFT. But if there's a need, we know all the players on the system. Thanks for that. Let's move. I'm going to try and take as many questions as possible. So I'm going to try and go quickly, and I'm going to ask you for concise answers as well. What system or measures are in place to treat with disputes regarding balances? I think we kind of just dealt with that, so perhaps we could move on. How does the system satisfy your KYC rules? How does the system satisfy KYC, which is know your customer for those who are wondering, rules? Who wants to take that?
I can take, if Kate, do you want to take that or? Well, go ahead.
For the system doesn't start, in terms of the system is pre-built with some basic KYC, so it will ask you for basic information, your age, your, where you come from, your residence and that sort of thing. But that's one of the reasons why we have, for instance, the agencies in place to do a further check on that, because the system is not foolproof, because there will be things that we cannot program, that we will not know about you, that we want to know about you, that cannot be programmed into the system. Now, Governor, you would have mentioned the banks. They would have more information, more profile information on their customers. So that will satisfy all KYC information. The system will do initial checks, and the agents and the banks will do the other checks that are required.
Right. So again, just to be clear, the banks that the ECCB regulates, they have to satisfy us on AML-CFT. Anti-money laundering and combating finance and terrorism. So we're satisfied that they have the framework, so no problem. That satisfies that. For the agents, we have to be satisfied with the onboarding arrangements for AML-CFT. If they don't satisfy us, they cannot be agents. So that addresses that question. Thank you for that, Kate. Next question. Will agencies be subjected to the same AML legislation as banks? Well, the answer is absolutely yes. It's one law for any and all partners involved. Next question. Would I be able to shop online, for example, Amazon, using this new technology? And the answer is no, not yet. So for those who are wondering, the digital EC dollar is about payments and transfers within our currency union. So it's only digital dollars. We're not using US dollars. Now, we do know that there's a larger discussion taking place globally among central banks about global digital currencies or cross-border payments connecting digital currencies. And it is very possible that in the not too distant future, digital currencies will be used for payments cross-border and in foreign currencies. But to answer the question by this particular participant, in this project, we are not able to make foreign payments. Second, or next question, am I able to benefit from interest on my digital wallet cash? The answer is no, it is not an interest-bearing instrument. It's a payment instrument. And the reason for that is obvious. We don't want you to be moving sums of money from your bank or your credit union and putting it in your wallet, right? This is a payment instrument. So you move the money that you need, you make the payments that you need to make, and you keep moving. It will not attract interest. And this is why, for those internationally who are concerned about potential impact on deposits or bank deposits, that's not an issue for us with this pilot, because we're not paying interest on the digital cash. Next question.
Just to note, Governor, that we really don't want to be competing with the banks. The banks are our partners. We really do not want to be competing with the banks.
And
right, thank you, Kay. That's an important observation. For those who are wondering, we see this as complementary to what is already being offered by our financial system, and therefore the banks will continue to have a very important role to play. But I also want to be very clear. We are not going to go at the pace of our banks. I have to be very honest with our region about that. The innovation in the payment system will not go at the pace of our banks. And that is why the ECCB is taking this initiative. Okay? Well, in other forums, I've said it before, we cannot outsource our development. Many of the decisions are made outside of our region, and at the end of the day, we have to handle our own business. So very much a compliment to the banks, but there are times when we will move and lead because the banks are not moving fast enough. And I say this because it is no secret. I've said it before. Payments take too long and are too expensive in this region. Mm-hmm. And I'm still very much concerned that checks, for example, of course we want to see less and less checks, still take 2 and 3 days to clear. And I'm still concerned that wire transfers that should take a same day takes 1 or 2 days sometimes. We have to do better than that. And that is what we want to get at in terms of improving payments in our region. Next question. Can a user choose to have a value-based wallet and also a registered wallet?
Yeah.
The answer is no. The answer is
They cannot have two value-based, but they can have a registered and value-based.
Right,
Yes.
right. So I hear the panel is agreeing that you cannot have two value-based, but you can have one registered and one value-based. They're two. All right. Thanks for that. Good. Next question. Let's go to Facebook now. How can IT companies become partners? I think probably Sybil, I think that was a question earlier that you touched on. The APIs, fintech partners, how could they get involved?
for the pilot, Governor, we are only dealing with the current technology platform and development. And that is, of course, so that we can have a more sanitized environment to be able to see what is working and what is not working. Close to the end of the pilot, what we're going to be making available is our application programming interface. That's the APIs. And that really allows for applications to talk to each other and allow for applications to connect to the networks so that they can also leverage the platform to build their own service offerings to a niche market. And this allows for that ecosystem build out that we spoke about earlier.
Right, thank you, Sybil. Question, what criterion or criteria went into selection of agents? Who wants to take that? What criterion or criteria went into selection of agents?
I'll take it, and I think I alluded to it earlier in terms of one of our main reasons was having somebody that we had confidence in that's already performing a compliance role. And in terms of the agents, we felt the best institutions to do that were our non-bank financial agencies, our non-bank financial firms, because we already provide some oversight for them. We know their compliance. They are regulated by the same AML, CFT regulations that the banks are subjected to. And so we felt confident that those are the best people to deal with it.
Right. Thank you, Kay. We do have a responsibility for financial integrity, which is AML, CFT safeguards. So we are making it a lot easier, but we do have to ensure. And as Kay said, the selection of agents is based on that. We have to be satisfied that our agents have what it takes in terms of AML, CFT protocols. It's that simple. Now, that does not mean that other people may not become agents as we go forward. That's quite possible. But again, they would have to satisfy us on the AML, CFT front. Right, let's move. What other questions do we have? This is a quick fire round where we want to get as many questions in as possible. And then we'll ask the panelists for their final comments. What else do we have?
I see there's something about a code.
Let's
Where
see.
do institutions obtain the code?
So there's a question there. Where do financial institutions obtain the codes which are required to pass on to end users?
Go ahead.
Okay, Sybil, you want? All right,
Yeah.
well, financial institutions will receive those codes from the ECCB. And we have at least 15 financial institutions participating across the 4 islands. And based on each in terms of their onboarding and the number of customers that they will be dealing with, ECCB will be distributing those codes to each financial institutions. These codes will not be publicly known, and the security around the code will ensure that there's no tampering with that. Once it's issued to the customer, once they've onboarded, you will have your private key that you and only you will be able to access. And of course, we encourage every end user to practice safety in terms of securing your passcodes to this app.
Right, thank you, Kiran. Quickly, could you remind us, anyone on the panel, what are some of the participating institutions, FIs as we call them? So perhaps country by country, could you just mention some of our pilot partners? We don't have to do all this morning, but some of the ones that have already signed up.
Well, I
want to
could
take
start
that?
with St.
Right?
Lucia, Governor. We could all,
Yes.
it's original. ECCB is a regional institution, and we have so many countries represented here: St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, yourself in Grenadian. So there are quite a few institutions, and even remembering the names while we're doing those working sessions and consultations and scheduling discussions, we get mixed up, and we have to make sure we get the right institution all the time. In St. Lucia, we have Bank of St. Lucia. We also have Janu Credit Union, which formerly known as the Civil Service Association. We also have First National Bank participating in the pilot, and Monrepo Credit Union. One of the agencies, we have an agency in each island, and we have Capital Financial, which will be serving St. Lucia for now. Kay could add in terms of St. Vincent. No, we don't have St. Vincent participating.
It is not a pilot country.
Thank you, Kieran. Could you tell us about Grenada?
In Grenada, we have Grenada Cooperative Bank. We have the agent in Grenada is Huggins, George Huggins and Company. They are also merchants big merchants in Grenada. Who else do we have in Grenada?
I'll help you with that if you wish. Ariza Credit Union.
Ariza Credit Union.
And GUT Credit Union. We are a team, we work together.
And we have communal as well.
Yeah. And in Antigua, we have ECCB, Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank. We have FCIB Antigua. We have CUB Antigua. And the agent in Antigua is going to be St. John's Cooperative Credit Union Limited.
Right, very good.
We have St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank. We have Nevis Cooperative Credit Union, and we have St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union. And our agent in St. Kitts is going to be TDC Financial and Jad Cash.
Right, thank you. Sybil, did we miss anyone? I actually just realized, because we don't, we diverse in the bank. We don't really look at nationalities day to day. We just ECCB. But as you mentioned it, 4 of us on the panel come from 4 different countries originally. Although for me, my country of birth, my identity is very much Caribbean. So I identify with all our 8 countries, although I was born in Grenada. But there you have it, 4 of us from 4 different countries. That's part of what makes us ECCB, the diversity of our region. And so thanks for that. Let's go back to the questions. What do we have?
There's one on service level agreement for the resolution of disputes.
All right, go ahead, Sybil, on that. You want to respond to that? Just restate the question and then give the answer.
Do we have a service level agreement in terms of time frame for resolution of disputes channeled to the ECCB? And the response is we do have service level agreements with the financial institutions in terms of dispute resolution, so that we can pin them down to a particular time frame that we are targeting. We look at this as being expeditiously addressed. And so for us, the time frame will be no more than within the 24-hour time frame. However, it depends on the issue, of course. So we are targeting things to turn around very expeditiously. And one can be assured that as we talk about disputes, those will be in the minority, and the transactions itself will take about 3 seconds for one to effect a transaction. So that should be, I don't know, Kieran, if you want to add to that.
Sure, Sybil, thanks. In terms of, especially at the financial institutions level, be it a bank, credit union, we need to ensure in terms of customer service excellence, because persons can get really quickly, well, I could attest to myself, turned off if you cannot get that service when you need it. And we know where we say that Dcash is near cash. It is just like that, cash in your pocket, in your wallet. So you want to be able to execute your transactions with ease. So we need to ensure that those pilot stakeholders and partners, especially the financial institutions, can deliver that level of service. We have a 3-tiered approach. Primarily, you contact your financial institution with any query or issue that you have. The customer service agents are being trained where they would filter your queries, as they do right now, through their contact or sales support centers, From there, if your issue is a very technical one or complex, so based on the complexity of the issues, we will escalate that. Your financial institution can, to our developers, if it is a technical issue with the platform or the system. And from there, ECCB as well would be able to have comprehensive oversight of any issue. We have to appreciate it is a pilot, and we want to ensure we're here to learn. So any glitches or problems that may arise during that stage, we ensure that we put remedial measures in place immediately to ensure customer satisfaction and service excellence throughout with all stakeholders.
Right. Thank you for that, Kieran. So I'm going to give each panelist now 30 seconds for your final comments before, and then I will have a very small announcement or one announcement to make before we end. So let's start with Kieran. Well, Kieran, we just heard from you, so we give you a minute. Let's start with Kay. Kay, final thoughts?
Okay, I just want to encourage everyone to really delve into, do some research, continue to partner with us with this project. It's a historic project, not only in the region. We have lots of governments, lots of partners all over the world who are very much interested and reaching out to us to see how they can learn and how we can all share in this experience. So do not be left behind. Be a part of it. Eventually, when it comes on board, get your wallet, transact with it. We need the data. We need you to be a part of it to teach us from this experience to help to build the ECCU financial system. So we encourage you to be a part of the project.
Right. Thank you very much, Kay. Sybil, final thoughts?
It's really to continue what Kay has said, is to make sure everyone is excited and ready to participate. When we give the green light to say, get ready, we want you to say, I am here, I'm going, I'm here. And so it's all about transformation. Transformation begins with action. You have to take action to chart a better future. And part of that action is leveraging technology. And money makes the world go round. How can you now use your smartphone and your Dcash app to make not only money go around, but allow that money to help you to pursue your goals and to reach those goals in a quick time, a quicker time, a safer time, a cheaper time. And that's what we're all about. The Dcash experience awaits you.
All right. Thank you for that, Sybil. Kieran, final thoughts?
Yes, Governor, thanks. And to that, I would add, researchers, policymakers around the world are looking at central bank digital currencies. And since the onset of COVID, the interest has intensified greatly. And the ECCB finds itself at that position or a place where we are close to launching this groundbreaking milestone innovation. And be a partner. We ask everyone to participate. It affects your day-to-day life, especially with COVID. Our mobility has been impacted severely, and contactless payments, we're actually trying to expedite this project. Every partner has resource challenges and constraints during this time with reduced operating hours, but we're here continuing our tireless efforts to ensure that we could bring this solution to the people of the ECCU. And to that, I look forward to having a frictionless, cost-free way of making my payments very soon. And I hope we can all transact on our Dcash app. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Kieran. So I want to thank our expert panel, all ladies, who gave us great answers this morning and worked as a team. Thank you, ladies, very much. Doing it from home even, and we managed to pull it off. And so I want to thank you very much for that. For those of you who join in this conversation, you're still trying to figure out what this digital cash is all about. If you go to our Facebook page, the first 3, including today, you will find it there. And it might be useful for you to just go through it because you will get, a sort of build up. And many of the questions perhaps that you have could be answered if you simply visited our Facebook page. I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank all of the team that worked. So for example, I know Charmaine Powell is working on Zoom, our Chief Risk Officer, to answer some of the questions directly. I know Leanne Irish Wade was working with the Facebook questions to answer some of the questions directly. And then, of course, I want in the room to recognize the team. The coordinator of this ECCB Digital Dialogues, Dr. Emma Suado, who is in my office, Alston Crawford, Marlon Bristol, Shanna Daniel, Olivia Newton, Marlon Davis. Did I miss anyone?
Come along.
Ayadel, who helped us with our poll, Shamalan Kirby, who is our Director of Corporate Relations, Karina and Liz, Karina and Elizabeth Whalen, Karina Phillips Somersall, Miklas Swift, who was also in the background helping, many people behind the scenes helping to ensure that we had a good dialogue today. Before I go, I want to make an announcement. Next week, as we continue our ECCB Digital Dialogue series, we'll have a very special dialogue called Pandemic and Regional Air Transport. Pandemic and Regional Air Transport. And that will be next Thursday, July 16. And our featured guests will include Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, who is the chairman of the CARICOM Subcommittee on Air Transport. We will also have Dr. Justin Ram, the former Director of Economics at the Caribbean Development Bank. And there is one other panelist that we're expecting. We will be confirming with him shortly, and we'll announce that in the next day or so. So you can look forward to what is a very timely discussion and a very timely issue that touches and concerns all of us. And that is the issue of regional air connectivity. Next Thursday, July 16 from 8 p.m. So we're going to go night with that one. And we're expecting to have many of you join us for that via both television, radio, and our social media platforms. All then that's left for me to do is to thank all of you who've joined us today, participants via Zoom, those who have joined via Facebook, our listeners via the various radio stations across our region. Thank you very much, all of you. Let us together continue to work to build this region. Let us emerge from this pandemic even stronger. But to do that, we're going to need to take collective action. And we're going to have to do some innovation, one of which is our digital EC Cash project. Stay tuned for more on this very important project, which we will launch very soon. Thank you. God bless you all.